Hello everybody and welcome to the Space Engineers How-To Guide for Beginners. In this guide we're going to be covering everything from start to finish on anything you would want to do within Space Engineers. We're going to try and cover things like scripting, things to do with advanced rotors, pistons, things that you might not necessarily expect from a game like this. But first of all, to get into them kind of things and to get into modding and stuff like that, we've first got to learn how to play the actual game itself. And that's where we are here now on this episode. Is we're going to actually show you right at the beginning the first things you do on the map and some little tips as well along the way. Right, so the first thing we want to do is choose where we're going to spawn. When you start a game, now I've not covered the settings for a game, that's totally down to you. If you're struggling with settings, then let me know in the comment section, or better still, drop down into our Discord and we can discuss things like game settings further. But I'm presuming you're going to want to set your own thing up, so I'm going to leave that to yourself. However, you will always get this spawn screen. Depending on what star system you pick will depend on how many of these planets we have. Now I've picked the star system, so it's got all the planets on it. So we've got the Earth, the Moon, the Alien, the Titan, the Mars, the Europa, and the new Triton map from the Frostbite one. So what we're going to do, because Earth-like and Triton are both exactly the same except the size and look of the planet, we're actually going to take Triton drop pod. Everything you do on Triton is exactly the same as Earth. The gravity's the same, the oxygen's the same, so you can expect the same kind of gameplay on both. But for a different background look, we're going to pick Triton. So we're going to hit respawn. And if you press the V button, you'll get a nice little outside view of your drop pod coming in to land. Oh, there goes the parachute. That's been automatically designed to hit at a certain height. It's going to bring us in nicely into our location we're going to be spending for some time. And we have landed. And you'll notice now I've got some yellow markers coming up. This ship has an ore detector on it, so we're already picking up ores within its range. Now, there's a couple of things I want to discuss here. This is going to be your lifeboat until you get yourself set up. The first thing you want to do is familiarize yourself with it. To do that, if we press our V button again, we're back in. And we can stay in here, we're absolutely safe. We've got full oxygen, we've got full health, we've got full power. The first thing you're going to want to do is hit your K button, and you're going to want to go to the inventory. Now, you've already got your tools in your toolbar, but we've got a couple of things in the ship that you need to recognize. This shows you what you're directly connected to. As we're in a passenger seat, it shows us the weapon we want and the 3 lots of ammo we want. And I'm not quite sure what that is. I think that might be a location beacon. We'll pick it up, we'll right click to read. There's plenty of work available if you know where to look. You should investigate this place. I heard there is a shortage on couriers. Okay, so it gives us a GPS marker, so we can cancel that. We can pop that back in there. We can use that later on. Now, to see the rest of the ship's inventory, you hit this little box here and it gives you the rest of the ship. The only thing that's any importance to us at the moment, because we have oxygen on, we're on an oxygen-rich planet, we don't need the oxygen tank, but we do need the hydrogen tank. But as you can see, I'm not able to drag it across. That's because the way the ship is connected, it stops you dragging things through, which we'll get into more detail at a later stage. So how do we get our hydrogen tank? Because at the moment we've only got a certain amount of hydrogen, so we can only fly for so long until our hydrogen runs out and we drop down. The first thing you want to look at is there's the survival kit, and here is the O2H2 generator. Now if you notice, when we were sat inside, our H2 bottle is in our H2 generator. If we press F on this, we can now drag our hydrogen bottle in. So we're good for flying now for a little bit. We've got our survival kit here, and we're going to need that. And if you look here, there's a little screen. That will also charge your hydrogen and oxygen, and if you needed it, so your hydrogen and power, and if you needed it, your oxygen. You press the J button, that'll allow you to open and close your visor. You see? Good view there. J button. And it closes the visor up. A little hard to see there, but there you go. So, because we're on an oxygen-enriched planet, then we can leave that open and we've got no problems. Also makes the sounds a little better too. A little clunky when you've got the screen down. Now, the other important thing that we want to check out here is these little green buttons here. We've got 9 hours of battery power, which you can see from the K menu if you went onto your battery. But a good tip on how to see it is these little green icons here. If these are yellow, it means it's set wrong. It means it's not giving any power out. If there's no green or there's red, then there's a problem and we'd have to deal with that. I'm not going to go into too much detail because you should have no problems if you've just landed. It should be exactly how it is, so we don't need to worry about that just yet. However, we do need to start thinking about some things to do because we're sat in a drop pod that's not going anywhere. It's locked down on the ground. So what do we do? Well, there's a few things we can do. Because we're on a planet with an oxygen atmosphere, we haven't got too much of a problem with oxygen production, so we've only got hydrogen production to worry about. So that's one thing taken off our menu already. The next thing is to start building a base. Now, there are two things we can do about building a base. The first one is we can grind down this ship, like so. And the parts will go into our inventory here. And we can use these parts, then build on the ground, like so. But the likelihood is you're not going to get very far because there's not much on this to be able to build this. This has a way of producing more of these steel plates. So we're going to leave it intact for now and we're going to use it as our temporary base of operations. So if you press the number 3 button here, which gives us our drill and all of our toolbars at the bottom there, we'll go through things like the toolbars and stuff like that as we go along. But for now, everything that we need is on the toolbar. The first thing we have is our left click, which will build the ground down and give us some sort of resources. We can then press the F button and we can collect them resources. I tend to like to make a little bit of a hole down so that when you're drilling it all falls into the hole and then you can collect that and place it into our survival kit. I'll explain a little bit more about that in a moment, but the thing I want to show you right now is our right click. So, as you can see, digs a much bigger hole. However, we got no resources for it. This is purely a ways of kind of setting your ground up so you can do stuff. I tend to kind of keep it close by so that I can just drop it in and do what I need to do. Now this ground is actually ice, so we've actually got hydrogen production on this entire planet. If we were on the Earth then you'd have to find ice to be able to then do something with it, but we've got plenty of ice here, so that's the difference that we have. And you can just drag that along into the hydrogen, the O2H2 generator, and have no problems. Okay, so what we do need is rock. Now we've got a couple of choices. We can dig down deep enough to get the rock, or we can go onto the mountainous range there and get it. Our pod is in the middle of nowhere, so the likelihood is that we're probably better digging down here. If we crouch and then right click until we break through the layer of ice, like so. You can tell because of the colour difference. Now we're quite a ways down now and it's getting a little bit dark, so we can press our L button and we've got a little bit of light, and you can see straight away we're in stone. We also want to make sure that when we dig upwards we don't dig straight into our pod. If that drops, it'll break, cause problems, all sorts of stuff. But we have made it down to stone. This is the same on the Earth. You know, you get a good stone enrich, you're fine. We're going to dig out some of the stone here. So we may get a little bit of ice because we're still on the ice section. Don't worry about that. Don't worry too much about having to dig in a line, you know, so you can get back out. You've got a jump pack, however, it is best advised that you do go that way. You can dig yourself back up using the right mouse button here. and then you can just literally walk up it as and when you need to collect more resources, like so. A little bit of getting used to, but you get used to it after a while. And we can just step on back down into our hole, collect our rock, like so, and then we can walk-ish out. Go. Okay, and then we can go to our drop pod. And then you can press the F on our survival kit. Now, there's a couple of things. If you press the deposit all ores, ingots and components button, that will drop everything you have into the nearest box, which is at the moment the survival kit. But if I do this now, it will drop it and it'll say one component could not be deposited. That's because we've got ice and the survival kit will not take the ice. So what you have to do then, and to be able to make sure you can get everything into the storage you have, is if you press the show connected inventories on ship or station, then press the right mouse, the little right arrow, it will deposit into the nearest available storage that it can deposit into in order of this list. Just bear that in mind, because that can sometimes trip you up when you try to deposit everything. What it will do is it'll leave you all of your tools, your weapons and your oxygen and hydrogen bottles, including the empty ones, so bear that in mind. Now, we've got stone in our survival kit. What is it for? Well, if we go into our production here, you'll see that the only thing that's highlighted for us is the ingots item here. Everything you produce can be produced from stone, apart from your high-end stuff. What I mean by that is everything you need basic will be done through the survival kit and through this stone or whatever. The disadvantage of it is stone produces a lot less iron, silicon and whatnot. If we collect one here, you get 1.4 gravel, 3 iron, 0.24 nickel and 0.4 silicon. That is massively lower than what you would expect from getting it via actual ores, so iron ore, nickel ore, silicon, and you're also not getting the byproducts as well if you use that. So just bear that in mind. However, we are absolutely fine using the stone to get going, and we can get the base going to what we need without having to travel out to try and find specific ores. The other thing as well is these won't, without a refinery, we won't get much elsewhere anyway. So stone is absolutely fine for now. And as you saw, you click the ingot thing there, it generates one, and it takes some stone. And it'll eat through the stone as well. So what can we do? Well, there's a couple of things we can do at this stage. If we press it once, it creates one item. If you press the control button, it creates 10 of that item. If you press the shift, it'll create 100 of that item. If you press control shift, it'll create 1,000. So what that's now doing is it's constantly using the stone to try and generate ingots. When it can't generate any more ingots, it'll stop and it'll keep it as it is. So what you want to do is queue yourself up, say 5,000. It won't do the 5,000 because it'll run out of stone before then, at this stage anyway, because you can't carry that much. But what it will do is it'll allow you to then continue doing what you need to do. So we'll just build 100 steel plates. 110 steel plates because I pressed the wrong button. Now if you notice, we can't produce ingots anymore. It's stopped. There's no more stone. We've now transferred the iron from this section here into our survival kit. Now produce our plates. So what we can do is we can go ahead and carry on digging. We can get ourselves some more stone. There we go. Place up plenty of stone. And you want to collect it all by just keeping hold of the F key and looking at it all. There we go. It'll all drop down into a hole, nice and easy. Come back out, drop back down, go back to your survival kit, place your stone across, and straight away it will start producing the ingots. But what it's going to do now is it's going to share between the two. It'll aim to do the ingots first, because obviously we've got stone directly in there, we've not got enough iron. And then once it's completed that, it will then move back over to its secondary function. So now we've got ourselves some steel plates. So we can right click that and split it if we want. or we can double click it and take everything out of it into our nearest inventory, which is this here. If you've got ships and stuff like that, we'll talk about that later, but basically if you double click it will always take it to the top one. If I double click it again, it'll always move it. Now if I press this to show all the inventories, you'll notice that I've got a small cargo container. If I double click, it won't do anything at all. Because it doesn't know where to put it. If I click off that, it still won't do anything. Because what it's trying to do is it's trying to put it back into the survival kit. But the survival kit will only take stone and iron ingots and stuff like that. So this top bar here, because it isn't designed for steel plates, it won't accept it. But it won't also try and place it in any of these here. So if you do need to move it out of your inventory into a survival kit, you have to physically move it into the bottom section here. And then you can move that if you want, or you can double click it and put it to the top bar here, because we are accepting of the resources. Okay, so that's a couple of things there. You got your drills, you've got, you know, your grinding ability, you've got your welding ability if you need to repair your ship if it comes under any hits or anything like that. There you go. So we ground that down, we just fixed it back up. We've now got ourselves some steel plates. So if you press the number 4 key as is standard, if it's not on your toolbar there at the bottom, if you press the G button there, it's always here. Now, there's a couple of things I want to point out whilst we're in this menu. If you've never played Space Engineers before, the likelihood is you won't have a lot of this stuff because you have a progression system. As you can see, this is all grayed out. Because what you want to do, and generally in a single player mode, it will have progression set. You can remove that so you can have everything unlocked, but it won't allow us to build anything else. Don't panic, don't worry about it. There's loads of things there we can unlock, and we will unlock it as we go along. The things we want is already unlocked. We don't need anything else. So we've got our light armor block, we've got our basic assembler, basic refinery, and some form of power, and the landing gear. The landing gear is not too important at the moment, but that will be useful at a later stage. For us right now, we need some form of power. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press my number 4. Now, you notice I had a small bar block here. This is called a small grid. If I put it next to the large grid, it will automatically flip it to a large grid for me. Large grids are your ground vehicle, like your stations and stuff like that. Small grids are for ships and stuff. To physically change it differently, you just press the number 4 again and it will change it for you. You'll also notice the large grid stuff costs more, or considerably more, because obviously it's considerably bigger. So what we're going to do is we're just going to place ourselves a 9 block square. And that's a mistake, so I'm going to draw that out. So now we've got ourselves set in the ground. We don't need to upgrade this, but if anything hits it, literally with one hit, it will collapse it. If you're running with the environment set to anything other than safe, you'll get meteors constantly. I suggest doing that because the meteors contain uranium and other resources that you're going to need, because uranium is not on the planets. So it's worth having them, but then you run the risk of hitting your base. I've turned them off for the moment just so I can concentrate on showing you all things as we go. I'm actually going to make this a little bigger by a 4x4 square, so we've got a little bit of room now. Before anything else, I've kind of run over so that we've got a little bit of a problem now. We're running low on energy. Now, the difference between Earth and Triton is a cold atmosphere. So we're actually using more suit power. And I'm kind of glad we've done this, because then I can explain to you the things your suit does and why it's using more power. Because obviously we've got a heater on board. It's keeping us warm so we don't freeze to death. If you're wondering what to do, because we've got no power in our base yet, if you remember, we've got power in our pod. We're going to move ourselves over into our pod, and you can do one of two things. You can sit in it and it will charge you slowly. See, I just jumped that quickly in and out just to show you. Or you can head on over to here, where this screen is here, press the F key, and one hit will do pretty much the same thing. You can just hold it there and it will charge you up, so you don't have to jump in and out of your ship if you don't want to. So, if you decide to log out, just make sure you sit yourself into your seat there, and you should be safe for logging in and out. You'll notice we've dropped our power down by an hour already, so we've really got to start thinking about moving. Okay, so we've got our little platform here. What next? Well, we're going to need power. And the first thing that I'm going to build is I'm going to put a block here. I'm going to use our jetpack so we can go up a bit. I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4. The most height I tend to go with these is 10 high because that's generally where you're going to get it. But if you notice now, I'm trying to put the windmill down, the wind turbine, and it's showing red. Not letting me. If you click it, it'll tell you why. You need interior plates to build wind turbine. But we're building a lot of steel plates, and we've got no more resources. So, we press the 0 key to clear our hands. We need to start thinking about interior plates. I've got enough steel plates for now, so I'm going to drop my production from steel plates off. I'm then going to queue up 100 interior plates. It will still not produce the interior plates because we've got no more iron, because it also takes iron for interior plates. So I'm going to go back down into my mine, and I'm going to collect myself some more stone. And that should be enough stone to keep us going for a while, so we're going to collect all this up. We've got a little bit of ice in there, but as I said, I'm not too worried about ice. We can still use it. It's still going to generate some stuff for us. We're going to then pop it back into here, open up our inventories, and right shift over. Now what you notice is when I did the right shift over, it deposited all ores, ingots, and components. So if we now check into here, we've got our steel plates into the second slot. Because that second slot was available because I opened it up. Now the second slot is actually still available now because it is a part of the survival kit. So even if you press that, it would still move it over. Just bear that in mind. So I'm going to bring it back because we still want our steel plates. And we're going to just wait for our production of our interior plates, which should be any moment now once our stone has been worked through. Now, if you're impatient and you're like, well, I can't be sat here waiting, I really want to just get the one plate so I can place it down, you can drag this along to here, like so, and it will take that as the priority build, and it will wait until you've run out of that to then build on that. Sometimes it's useful to do that if you want to do something. I'm going to flip it back around again because we can wait for the interior plates. We've got our 10 interior plates now. We can now place down our wind turbine. Now there's a couple of things you can do to work out what you need to build the wind turbine. Whilst holding one, it will show you on the right hand side what it needs. Bear in mind that may not necessarily be for the size you want, because a wind turbine can be placed only on a large block, but a steel plate can be small block, which will show you a different requirement. For us, obviously, because it only is a large block, we're absolutely fine. And we're going to need 40 interior plates, technically, 8 mortars, 20 construction components, 24 girders, and 2 computers. Now, you may be wondering why it's got 2 lots of interior plates. The first one is to make it functional. The second one is to make it armoured, so that if you take a hit, it will take out from the top of the interior plates first, and then make it unable to be used and unfunctionable once it goes below that stage. But realistically, we need 10 interior plates, and then the rest, apart from the 30 interior plates. So we're going to head and we're going to queue it up. Now, there are a couple of things you can do to do that. But be wary. If you do this, it will do it for the full requirements and not just for the 10 interior plates. But if you look into this little block here, and if you press your middle mouse button, it will add the components to the build planner, because we haven't got the components. If we then go to here, we can add selected components to production queue. We haven't got a component, but what else we can do is we can add components from build planner to the production. We want to remove this because what we've done is we selected the components which trying to now build us a drill. We don't want the drill, so we'll remove that. That was this here, because we were selecting the grinder, sorry, not the drill, the grinder. We'd selected the grinder, we told it to build one. We wanted to build what we've put in the build planner. And it's now going ahead and doing that. As you can see, we've now got 50 interior plates. The other interior plates we were previously building, plus the 40 that we now want from the build planner. the 10 and the 30. It's just worthwhile noting that because it just makes it that little bit easier when you're trying to do everything just to have it with you. Another thing to note, if it stops building but you've got resources, check that your volume here isn't filled up. Because it's quite easy to fill this up once you start building things like girders and stuff, because these take up a lot of room. So that's going to be building, and that'll be for our wind turbines. So we're giving ourselves some sort of power. Now, that is raw power. It's not stored anywhere. We've got no batteries. So that's why we go for the windmill, because the windmill is constant power. The solar panels will only be during the day. So just bear that in mind. But we'll have power. So we'll be able to do some stuff, and we won't have to rely on our little pod. Another thing we can also do as well is we can take the seat off that and place it onto this and give ourselves an ability to charge ourselves without worrying about running out of energy. And welcome back. And I just wanted to just slightly build off the resources we did for our windmill. Now I've got in here. Pick this up without going to here and pressing F. Just press your I button there and it brings it up for you. We've now got all the stuff for our wind turbine. We're going to pop up here and we're going to weld it up. As you can see on the right hand side there, it's got a little functional hack. I've just stopped it there. You see it's in red, it means it's not non-functional. If you're trying to capture something, if you bring it down that little line there and then weld it back up again, it becomes your item. So that's a way to hack it as well. Once you get above that blue line, it becomes functional and it's now in use. Now, if we didn't build the 30 interior plates and you did it manually without, queuing it up manually without adding them 30 plates, then you'd have something like this. But that interior plate there would say 0 or 30. We have it so we can weld it up a little bit extra so it can take that little bit of damage and still be functional. Obviously, if it was right next to that line, one, it'd be easier for people to grind it themselves so that they could then hack it, and two, it would obviously take one hit to damage it and useless. So, but there we go. So we've now got ourselves a block that is powered. What I mean by that is everything that is connected is now powered up. So you can continue building. You can build anywhere. I'll bring this up here. If I bring this all the way along here like so, I can go forever, and all of this is still powered by the one wind turbine here. Now on the next episode we'll go through power usage, how to get something that's going to make it a little bit easier for us to operate, because if we try to operate stuff now without one wind turbine, the likelihood is we're not going to get far. We can improve it by placing a solar panel, but what resources it's going to cost, we don't need to do that right now. We're doing very basic things. We've got ourselves a little bit of a location here. We've got our drop pod as a backup and a safety area, and that's currently working for us, but it ain't going to cut it for us when we get anywhere near what we're going to do. So hopefully that's giving you a little bit of an opener into how things are going to go. We are going to call it here at this episode. In the next episode we're going to discuss the assembler, we're going to discuss the refinery, and hopefully we're going to start looking at doing things a little bit better than what we're doing now and give ourselves a little bit of a permanent location. But as you can see, we've got ourselves some setup, we've got ourselves a little power supply, and we've got ourselves our little backup respawn pod here. So that's it for this episode. Make sure you check out the next episode when it goes live. Let me know in the comment section if there's anything specific that you'd like to know, or if you're struggling with anything specific. And if you do want to ask more information on certain things, then hit that Discord up and we can discuss anything with you, like the settings or anything like that, on directly between yourself and those who play on the multiplayer server. But until next time, everybody, take care for now, and I'll see you all on the next episode. Bye bye for now.